Hello everyone! When I switched over to Koala Go, the thing that I was most concerned about was the onboarding process because I know the parents of my students very well, and I know one, they were going to be hesitant to just switch to a new platform because we've been using another platform for 3 years and change is always difficult for everyone. And two, because it's on a browser rather than an app, I knew that would be a little tricky for some of my parents that are not very tech savvy. So before I even thought about teaching any of my students on Koala Go, I had to make sure I was well prepared to get them switched over. So I'm going to give you some tips to hopefully make the process a lot smoother and less frustrating for you, for the parents, and for the students. Because if there's any issues, that's just going to make the parents even more nervous about switching to a new platform. So the first thing that I did when I was making the switch, besides telling them about switching to this new platform, was to find out what device my students were using. I pretty much knew my students were using iPads, but it's always good to double check. So the reason you need to know what device they are using is because that's going to determine what browser they need to use for their class to make sure Koala Go runs efficiently. So if your students are like mine and using an iPad, they are going to be using the Safari browser. From what I've seen on my students' tablets from screenshots, it looks exactly like ours. It's written in Chinese, but it also has it written in English, and the image looks exactly the same. So if they're unsure what it is, you can easily just send them a screenshot of what the Safari browser looks like, and they should be able to find it easily on their iPad. If they're using a different device, like a PC, Mac, or Chromebook, they will be using Google Chrome. Koala Go recently added support for 2 Android devices, the Galaxy Tab tablet and the Galaxy S smartphone, and those also will use Google Chrome. There is one device that is fairly popular in China that is not supported on Koala Go because it doesn't have a browser that is supported, and that's this one right here. I'm not sure how to pronounce it exactly, why. It's a device. It looks like an iPad, but it's not an iPad. I do know of a teacher that said she's had some success with her students using this device, using the Edge browser, but I can't promise that will work because, like I said, it is not supported by Koala Go. I do have one student that was using this device, but luckily he has a sister that I also teach that has an iPad, so he's just going to use her iPad for class. So if you do find out one of your students has this device, I would recommend asking them if they have another iPad in the home that they can use instead. It'll make it much easier for them. So now that I know what device my students are using, now I want to test out them going into the classroom. And make sure you're doing this not during an actual class time, because if there are any issues, you don't want to waste your class time and lose money for that class. So there are 2 ways for you to do this test. First, they can do it with you. So you're in the classroom and they enter the classroom. Or they can do it without you. I'm going to go through both of those methods and how you can test it. The first thing you should do is, of course, set up a time to test entering the classroom with your parent and student. So I didn't put this in here, but actually my first step would be to have them update. I did not do this, and I found out that most of my students do not update their iPads. So I can guarantee you that most of your students probably do not have an updated iPad. So I recommend telling them to do this before you even set up a test with them, because it will make things a lot easier going forward. So if you don't know how to explain to your students how to update their iPad, Koala Go does have a video that I sent to my parents, and it worked very well. It's in English, but it's very visual. And like I said, everything pretty much, their iPads pretty much look the same as ours, except in a different language. So I sent them that video, and then I told them, follow the steps to make sure your iPad is updated. And the reason that is so important is because it could cause issues in the classroom if they don't have an updated iPad. I had one student had a really old version of the operating system, and he couldn't even open Koala on his iPad at all. It was just a white screen. Once he updated, it worked perfectly. I have another student who has not as old of a version, but it's still pretty outdated. And when she enters the classroom, she has a black box for her video. So once she updates, then that issue will be resolved. So highly recommend, just assume their iPad is not updated and tell them, please update your iPad before we do our test. Once they've done that update, then set up the test with your parent or with the student, depending on who you're going to set that up with. Okay, so once they're updated, you set up a testing time. Then you're going to send them your classroom link. If you're not sure where that is, it's up here in the little plus that says invite student. If your students are in China like mine, make sure that box is selected, copy that, and then send it to them wherever you're going to send it. I recommend asking them what type of chat they have on their student's iPad. So it could be like WeChat or any other type of chat system. If they don't, then they could always just type the address into the address bar in the Safari browser, whichever browser they're using. So send them that classroom link, remind them to use the correct browser. So you can send them that picture again. Please remember to use the Safari browser. So once you send them that link, they can either click on that link or they can copy it. If they do click on the link, they will get this message. So they will see, if they're opening it in, let's say, WeChat, it will tell them that it's only supported in Safari and tells them to copy the link. If they don't copy the link and they click here, it will still open Koala Classroom, but it's not going to be using the correct browser, which again could cause issues in the classroom. And you will be able to know once they enter if they copied it into the correct browser or if they didn't. And I'm going to show you that here in a second. So they're going to see that, or again, like I said, they can just type the link into their browser, or they can copy and paste it into their browser. So make sure you remind them, use the Safari browser. Okay. After they enter the link or copy paste it in there, they're going to be in the waiting room. So here's what mine looks like. And the great thing about it is it will be in Chinese. So they will be able to read it in their own language. So if it's a younger student, they will be able to understand. It'll tell them to enter their name, ask to join. They can test their camera and microphone over here. So once they ask to join, that's when you will get the notice in your classroom. And this is where you will be able to know immediately if A, they're using the correct browser, and if they are, B, if their device is up to date. Please take note of this before you hit accept, okay? So this is what you will see if they are not using the correct browser. So here it says, need to use Safari. So I know right away, they probably just clicked that continue anyway in WeChat, and they're not using the correct browser. So you will see this white box right here if it is incorrect. If they are using the correct browser, but their browser is not updated, you will see that white box, but you'll have a different message. I can't remember the exact wording, but it's similar to student needs to up-to-date browser. So again, you'll get a message in this white box if something is not correct, the wrong browser, or they're not updated. If, cross your fingers, they did everything correctly, they're updated, they're using the correct browser, you will not see this white box at all. It will just say, Kendal would like to join, and then you click accept. Then you should see them below you, you should be able to hear them, and you can just make sure the main classroom is functioning, sound and video. If there are any other problems, let's say the box over here shows they use the correct browser, they're updated, but there's some other issue, you have no camera or there's no sound, you can then contact the in-class support, which is down here. When you click on this, just tell them I'm in a class with my student and tell them the problem. they will need your classroom link. So you just copy that link and you paste it into the chat box over here, and they can see what the problem is. So this whole process of this test sounds a little complex, but it will only take probably 3 to 5 minutes, depending on if there's any problems along the way. So if your student has everything done perfectly, you're good to go. So I would write their name down, check them off my box. I know that this student is ready to have class with me. If it says they use the wrong browser, if you have time right then, just remind them on WeChat, say, it shows that you're not using Safari. Please remember to enter through Safari. They leave the classroom or you kick them out of the classroom, have them rejoin. And then you can see if A, they're using the correct browser now, and then if they are updated. If they are using the correct browser, but they're not updated, I would resend them that video, remind them. You can show them a screenshot of what it shows. Say, I'm sorry, your device is not updated. Please make sure you update. I would not have them do that right then and retest, because I know from experience that updating an iPad can take quite a long time. So I would either just remind them and then maybe test the next day when they are available. Or you can have them send you a screenshot proving that they are updated, so you know that everything is good to go. So that's how you test with you in the classroom. But we all know that sometimes our schedules are very busy. You're on different time zones than your students, so finding a time to meet with them and test it is not always convenient for you, or having to retest if they had any issues. So how can you do this test without you? So here, you're going to still have them update their device first. Always do that first. You're still going to send them that classroom link, reminding them to use the correct browser. Since you're not going to be in there with them, make sure you remind them multiple times if you need to. So you're going to tell them at their own convenience, say tomorrow. Don't give them a month to do it, but say, please, within the next day or two, click on the link, copy the link into the Safari browser, and then they're going to still enter their name, and they're going to click on Ask to Join. So you're going to tell them to do those two things and then take a photo after they did that. Explain to them, because they might be confused thinking, why am I not entering a classroom? Explain to them that you will not be entering class. This is just a test. We just want you to do those 2 steps, and we will use that information to make sure everything is good on your device. So what will that look like? That will look like this. After they have entered the name, asked to join a class, this is the screen they will see. So this is what the screenshot with their student's face right here, or them, and showing that they're just waiting to enter the class. So if you see that, you know they have done the steps that you asked them to do. After they have done that, then you can contact in-class support whenever you're ready. You don't have to do it right away, of course. Whenever you're ready, contact the support in the classroom, asking them to check all your students. Just say, hey, I'm onboarding my students. They have clicked on, they enter their name, they clicked Ask to Join, they send me a screenshot. I need you to check that they are using the correct devices, the correct browser, and their device is updated. And then the tech support can gather all that information for you and then let you know which students are all good, which ones need to update their device, or which ones are using the incorrect browser. And then you can take that information back to your parents. And then after they've fixed whatever problem there was, they can do it again, and then you can ask the tech support. So your goal is to have them have everything correct. Correct device, correct browser, and updated, ready to go. If you're going to do this method, I recommend doing all your students at once. Don't do one student, contact support. Do another student, contact support. Make it easier for them by just saying, doing all your students, you have them all ready to go. That way they can go through and check all your students at the same time. So now what? You've gone through those steps, and what do you do? Well, if the student was using the wrong browser, remind them which browser they need to use, send pictures again if needed, retest if needed. They're not updated. Send them Chinese instructions, which I do have as well if you need those, and or a video on how to update their device. Again, I have that video for updating their iPads, and then retest if needed. I will tell you that after sending all this information and doing this with my students, in the end, I only had, I think, 2 that did not follow directions. We all know that we are busy, parents are busy. Sometimes they just forget, or they think, oh, I don't really need to do that. So hopefully all your parents will listen the first time and everything will go smoothly right away. But if not, you might have to resend that information for them. Now, still need help. If you're having a hard time with 1 or 2 of your parents not getting the information and not updating, not using the correct browser, or let's say this whole process is way over your head and you don't want to deal with it. If you need help with any of this, all of this, you can email Tami. Tami works for Koala, but she's also an ESL teacher and teaches students in China, so she's very familiar with working with these Chinese parents. She can help you with onboarding. She can actually go into WeChat. You can create a class or a chat with your parent, and she can join, and then she can work with the parents for you on your behalf to get them set up. If this is the route you want to go, or you're having a hard time with one of your parents, email Tami. Tami at teachwithkoala.com, and she is more than willing to help you out. Tami is wonderful. She's helped me with a couple of my students that were having a hard time getting their devices up to date. So now, once you've done the test, you have all your parents ready to go. Now you are ready to teach your students. Once this is done, everything should be smooth from there. You won't have to worry about going through this process over again. Of course, you will want to make sure your parents and students keep their devices updated, which I have my own iPad, so I know when I need to update, I can tell them, oh, it's time to update your iPad. The other thing I want to stress is if you're going to be doing a 1-month free trial with my affiliate link, do all of this before you do the 1-month free trial. Everything in this onboarding can be done with the free version of Koala Go. So do all of this with the free version. Then when everything's ready, everything's set up, your parents are all good, your students are ready, and you're ready to teach, then start your 1-month free trial. Nobody told me to do that, so I spent the first week of my free trial onboarding. So I only ended up with really a 3-week free trial. So learn from my mistake. Don't be me. Take advantage of that full 1-month free trial to use teaching your students, learning how to use all the tools in the classroom. If you have any questions, please email me, or onboarding questions, you can also email Tami. Bye, everyone.